Thanks for watching on Fox 43 Plus and Fox43.com. I'm Ed Albert. Today we're talking about the NFL. We're in the full swing of the season now, and the business side of it is what we're going to dig into today a little bit. We're joined now with the author of a new book, Ken Belson, who writes for the New York Times, and his new book is Every Day is Sunday. Ken, thanks so much for being with us. I'm going to jump right into it. What made you want to write a book about Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, and Roger Goodell, three of the most powerful people in the NFL?
Well, you sort of highlighted some of it. They are the most powerful three people in the business side, anyway, in the NFL, and they have been for decades, frankly. And I'm a business writer. I've been a business writer for 30 years. I've covered the NFL as a business for about a decade and a little bit. And you can't help but notice right away who pulls the strings. Both Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft have been called the shadow commissioner at different points for their influence on league business, and Roger Goodell himself. And, they built the most successful franchises, number one and two. They have 9 Super Bowls between them. They've been incredibly involved in media rights, in getting CBS, NBC, Fox, and others to pay up, basically, big time, and and also in labor negotiations with the players' union. Over the years, they've been influential in labor agreements, and basically every major piece of NFL business runs through those guys.
You touched on it, media rights. That's sort of the business we're in here. We're a Fox affiliate. We air games. In reading what you wrote about how they all work together to try to, Robert Kraft's influence of, owning stations in the past. As we look forward to what's coming, we've already added Netflix games on Christmas last year. They're doing it again this year. The international rights really seem to be where things are at right now. What are your thoughts, or what maybe you've heard coming down the pipe of being some sort of package where we're going to see many more international games than what we've got now?
Yeah, absolutely, Ed. Look, the NFL faces a dilemma that, frankly, all businesses face, which is a slowing birth rate in America. We just don't have as many kids coming up. Those kids become mini football players, they become fans, they become consumers. So the long term here is we need more. The leagues are all looking for more people to basically go to games, to watch TV, and so forth. So with a slowing birth rate, you have an issue. International is essentially, especially for football, kind of a greenfield. It's not played outside of North America, except for maybe a little bit of Germany and a couple other countries. So it's a long-term play. They've been looking at this for years. And how do we get new fans in England, in Germany, and Spain, and other places interested in the game? That's where flag football comes in. It's a way to teach people about the rules. And as you alluded to, ultimately, this only really works. Not the one-off games we watch in Wembley or Madrid this year, Berlin. Those games are fine, but those are break even at best. The real money is media. And so, looking forward, what they need, or what they say they need, is an 18th regular season game. Once you expand that inventory of an extra bunch of games, 16 games, I guess, in a weekend, now you got more flexibility for bye weeks. Now you get more flexibility for extra travel. And so you will see, probably into the next decade, basically an international game every weekend. And that will be packaged into a media bundle. There'll be somebody, Netflix, YouTube, it's hard to say right now, will pay up for that into the billions of dollars.
And adding that 18th game, Ken, kind of takes me to the next part I want to ask you about, and is something that you really touch on in the book, is the labor relations part of it, and how influential these owners you wrote about are working with Roger Goodell, getting into some of what's going on from the players union side, from the most recent, quote unquote labor stoppage. They didn't really miss any games other than a preseason game, but so trying to get to that 18th game, knowing the figures that you've wrote about, where do you think they're, or how are they going to get that done, as we look to the future of how they're going to do it?
Well, a couple of things. The beginning of the book is 1993, because that's when they finally settled all the disputes, not or most of the disputes over free agency, The NFL was the last major league to add free agency, and there had been strikes, there were stoppages. Media companies were reluctant to pay too much because they were a little bit worried about losing games during a season in a calendar year. That was all settled in '93. And the key piece, I know a lot of fans look at the introduction of free agency and the salary cap. That's all, that is the modern NFL. But the other thing most people don't look at is revenue sharing. And it was that labor agreement where the owners and players went 50-50 on league revenue. And I quoted Gene Upshaw, the union chief back then, coming out of that meeting and saying, we're now partners. So it's a long way of saying that the relationship with the players is really as a business partner. And from that moment in the '90s, the players had every incentive for the owners to make more money, whether it's bigger stadiums, bigger media deals. They are partners. I think it'll be interesting in the next couple of years because the generation of players coming up now into the league are learning NIL, learning what the value of their own brand is, and they're being paid in college. So they're going to be a little savvier about how to negotiate with the owners in a way that in the old days it was a little different. Certainly in the very old days, players were making 25 grand. $1 million was over the moon. Now that's practically rookie scale. So you're just going to have a sharper, I would think, a more sophisticated union membership when it comes to finances. There will have to be protections on player safety, like the extra bye week. But by and large, the players see the same pot of gold that the owners see.
I want to go another next topic, a little off the ball, but still part of the book. One of the main figures, not main figure, but one of the figures that comes up in your book is Jeffrey Kessler. And so right now he is part of the lawsuit that's going on in the NASCAR world, where he's representing 2311 and Front Row Motorsports in their lawsuit against the France family in NASCAR. And so you write a little bit about him and how he worked through some of these labor deals in the past with the NFL. Just wondering if maybe you could give a little bit of insight on some of the things you know about Jeffrey and what you might see just from covering the business of a sport, what you think could be coming down from this NASCAR lawsuit.
Sure. And that's a great link, by the way. I've written about the franchise fight that's going on with Michael Jordan's team, and Jeffrey Kessler is representing Michael Jordan's team, Denny Hamlin's team. But he was part of the legal team back in the '90s that got the players free agency for the first time in 1993, and so or '92 and '93, and so this is a cottage industry for him. He's also involved in the settlement with the NCAA. Jeffrey Kessler is probably the most accomplished antitrust lawyer for players or athletes in the country. And it's probably not a surprise that Michael Jordan went to him, because he has experience with the NBA. So yeah, no, Jeffrey Kessler is a sharp cookie. The agreement that he got with the NFL, which is sort of telling, is that the antitrust settlement that they got was going to be supervised by a judge in Minnesota, and that went all the way through to 2011. And so whenever there was a problem where the players felt like they were getting shortchanged or whatever, they go back to that judge in Minnesota. It was a great sort of safety latch that they had, and eventually that sort of lapsed. But no, Jeffrey Kessler is as sharp as they get. The France family is a very different animal. It's a privately held, or well, they have a company, the raceway company, but basically it's the France family, and it's a very kind of I would say almost ego-driven business here, where Mr. France just isn't interested, and he doesn't really have shareholders in the same way that even the NFL has. So yeah, it's a very different dynamic, and I'm curious to see the trial is supposed to start at the beginning of December down in North Carolina. And NASCAR has actually asked the judge if they could bring in a mediator, an arbitrator, to settle the case before it gets to trial. That would be messy. Then you get all discovery. You bring people, put them on the stand and stuff. Nobody wants to go to trial, basically.
Yeah, and it seems like that's where sort of having followed what this case has been doing, the the hook of why everybody thinks there may be a settlement is because NASCAR probably doesn't want to open their books as the private company, and people have been trying to get their hands on those books for decades. And
And by the way, the NFL is no different there. There was a case in St. Louis after the Rams left for Los Angeles, and the city and county of St. Louis sued the NFL um, for not following its own relocation guidelines. And John Mara, Robert Kraft, Art Rooney, they all had to be deposed. And several of them were sanctioned by the court for not cooperating, for not opening their books. Yeah, no, the NFL is like every other private sports league. They're private for a reason, and the only little insight we get is through the Packers. The Packers are publicly owned. They put out annual statements, and so we do have a glimpse of how big the media money is and how big the sponsorship money is. But these other clubs are even bigger than the Packers, so you can imagine you kind of add 2x sometimes if you're the Cowboys, say. Yeah, it's these businesses are private for a reason.
I want to end with this, Ken. I appreciate the time. Somebody's going along the bookshelf, they see your book there. What's your pitch to them of why, as a sports fan, that they should pick this up and read, and what would be like the biggest takeaway you think for somebody that would pick this up?
Sure. I've been amazed as a business writer for a long time. The NFL is $23 billion. It's about the size of Kraft Foods. Yeah, it's a substantial company, right? But if you ask a man on the street how big is the NFL, they basically say it's as big as Walmart. There's a disconnect between how big the league is financially and how much it owns our mind share. Speaking broadly about America and our love for football, our love talking about football, the fact that we have primetime viewing for the schedule announcement in May when we all should be watching baseball and something else. But so they've been as a business story, I think it's a fascinating illustration of how they've become, frankly, just a media company that has programming known as football. And so that's an interesting business story. I think if you're a fan, people complain about why am I paying more for Peacock or Netflix, or why are all these games going to streaming? Why are my ticket prices what they are? Why am I being forced to pay for a private seat license? Those kinds of things. This book will, maybe you won't appreciate it, but you'll at least understand where these owners are coming from. They're not doing it for charity. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. His name is Ken Belson. His new book is Every Day is Sunday, a nice look into the business side of the NFL and the major players of Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, and Roger Goodell. Ken, thanks so much for taking the time for us, and we appreciate everybody watching here on Fox 43 Plus.
Thanks, Ed.